Ever since I left all social media earlier this year, I find myself sitting and thinking. I go to pick up my phone and I have nothing to look at. Then I put it back down seconds later and don't know what to do with myself. So I just think. I wonder what was going on the year I was born. So I Google it. Then I find out interesting things and I become incredibly smart. Then I use that knowledge to impress a woman who resembles Mazzy Star, loves baking banana bread, and prefers root beer to real beer, just like me. And she shares a nostalgia for Sega Genesis, then falls in love with me, cause her type of man has a receding hairline and a cartoonish mustache. Life's great. The end. Well, unfortunately most of that hasn't happened yet. But hey, maybe after I put out this video, it will. So let's begin. In 1981, I was born. That's the first good thing we can mention for the year. One might say I changed the video game industry 27 years later when I created the character Keith Apicary at the ripe age of 27 years young. Well, I at least changed the video game industry convention rules. Security got tighter when Keith started showing up. It's also very weird to think that I was 27 when I started Keith, because that number feels like so long ago now that I'm 43. 15 years went pretty fast. Anyway, that's not the point of this video. The point of this video is to go through major moments in gaming history for the year. Other things that happened in the year 1981 were President Ronald Reagan was shot. FYI, he didn't die. Pope John Paul II also got shot. The first HIV/AIDS case was reported in the United States. Jeez, a lot of sad things happened this year. Hey, let's not forget that I was born in 1981. Okay, maybe that doesn't help. Are you sad yet? Prince Charles and Princess Diana got married. That's cool. I liked her, but that also didn't work out very well. Bob Marley also died in 1981. Yikes, geez, 1981 is depressing. Dolly Parton's song 9 to 5 was a #1 hit. That's cool, good song, everyone loves Dolly Parton. Indiana Jones and the Raiders of the Lost Ark was the #1 movie. Sony sold 1 million Walkmans in 1981 in just a 9-month period.
It's the latest fad, tiny stereo cassette players with featherweight headphones.
They sold from between $100 to $200. That's like paying $345 to $693 in 2024. So basically $350 to $700 for a current musical device. Seems like a lot, honestly. Then I remember people pay $1,000 for a cell phone in 2024. So maybe it wasn't so bad. I think we would all benefit if we stopped using smartphones and went back to Walkmans, honestly. 1.3 million VCRs were sold in 1981 at the average price of $400, which is the equivalent of nearly $1,400 now in 2024. That seems high, but I guess you save money on watching movies at home instead of in the theater. I personally prefer the theater. Speaking of theaters, the average movie ticket price in 1981 was $2.78, which is about $9.88 now. $10? I was surprised by that. Not a crazy amount lower now 43 years later. I thought it would be like $2. Interesting. As you can see, I'm a big history fan. If you like dark history, check out my Nathan's Cemetery channel. Got some historical spooky stuff going on over there. If you like this video, then maybe I'll do other years in gaming history. Maybe all the years. Maybe other industries. Film industry, food, sports. Do people watch sports? Is sports still a thing? I don't know sports. But hey, maybe we need to dig into that if that's what people demand. I like boxing. Let me know what you want to see. Everyone plays video games now. Being a nerd is cool nowadays. Alright, let's get into the substance of this video. In 1981, the video game industry was thriving. Arcade games were pulling in $4.8 billion in revenue. And that's just the United States. Some of the games that came out that year were Donkey Kong, Galaga, Frogger, Miss Pac-Man, Asteroids, and Nintendo's Game & Watch handhelds. I still have mine. Watch the video on this channel where I show my current game collection. Pac-Man, which came out the year before in 1980, was now the highest grossing game for 2 years in a row. So Pac-Man was the #1 game of 1981. Pac-Man influenced other maze games to be developed. In 2024, the year we live in, the #1 game genre is Battle Royale. So games like Fortnite, third-person run-around and shoot real-life players type gameplay. In 1981, the genre was mazes. Simpler times. Times I think I prefer, At the time, I wasn't able to enjoy it, being I was a drooling blob that just recently fell out of my mom. Miss Pac-Man came out in 1981, the sequel to Pac-Man. I myself prefer Miss Pac-Man to Pac-Man. Donkey Kong came out in 1981, and it's said to have defined the platform genre. Konami released the game Scramble, which is said to have defined the scrolling shooter genre. This type of game is now referred to as a shmup, aka a side-scrolling shoot-'em-up. Keith Apicary knows all about those. Definitely a genre I'm into. My favorite shmups are Musha on Genesis and Ikaruga specifically on the Dreamcast. Although this might be sparking some debate in the comments, Ikaruga and Musha don't scroll to the side, they scroll up. Top-down shooters is the term used for them. Let me know if they count as scrolling shooters. Wait, no, they do. They scroll. They're shmups in my opinion. Whatever, moving on. Back to 1981. Also in 1981, Defender was released by Taito, another side-scrolling shooter. It was the number 2 game of the year, just behind Pac-Man, and just above Asteroids. They sold 55,000 arcade cabinets, and it was the company's best-selling game and one of the highest-grossing arcade games ever. Whoa. Galaga also came out in 1981. Most people know this game out of its series of other games like it. It's a sequel to Galaxian, which came out in 1979. Galaxian was the number 2 game of 1979. Interesting that Galaga is more known, in my opinion, even though it technically didn't do as well. The Apple II computer was the computer that most developers were making games for in 1981. 210,000 Apple II computers were sold that year. The Apple III was released in 1981, basically an updated version of the Apple II. Games released for the system that year were Ultima, a medieval RPG, Sneakers, a fixed shooter, and Castle Wolfenstein, a game where you shoot naughty Nazis. It was also the game that inspired the more known recent game of current times, that is Wolfenstein. And this one surprised me. The game Soft Porn Adventure was released in 1981. It was the first erotic video game, an adults-only text-based game for the Apple II computer. A photo ad that was used for the game featured 3 women in a hot tub with a waiter. It was considered a very scandalous ad at the time. I guess because you could see the skin of humans. Can't have that. We all have it, but we can't look at it. Pretty crazy how different times are now. People are naked everywhere. I will say I like current times more. We're not as closed-minded and fragile in regards to the human body, but hey, I'm the kind of guy who thinks being naked shouldn't be taboo. I run around with my clothes off at video game conventions. Maybe I'm the weirdo. 1981 was mostly a year for arcade games. The only home console that came out that year was the Epic Cassette Vision. The Atari 2600 had already come out a few years earlier in the 70s, and the Nintendo Entertainment System came out 4 years later in 1985. As far as video games go for 1981, that's pretty much it. If you want more videos like this for different years, let me know and I'll do it. Tell me years you're most interested in and I'll do some digging. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.
You can't get hooked on it.
Are you?
Yeah.